First off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, lectures, temples, everyone here today for the opportunity to continue discussing this, the Heart Sutra. So last week we finished a slide here. Okay, so we're talking about how these are having the consciousness from our sixth sense, right? Our sixth sense consciousnesses. Okay, they create basically, well, they create hell for us. Okay, well, through going through the six senses, and so so what we need to do is kind of transform the sixth consciousness into wisdom. You can say to transform hell into heaven, all right? And so let's see. Okay, so this is what all right. Remember, the sixth consciousness kind of corresponds to the well. Let's see. Okay, so the mind. All right. The sixth, and then the seventh is the manas consciousness, the volition. So from basically the what do we call it? The perception? No, not perception. Sorry. Sensation. Yeah. Okay. So right. Perception and the volition. Okay. So these two areas. These are basically what's happening in our consciousness is the cause. Basically, that's where everything starts, right? So our ignorance starts there. Our attachments, desires, everything starts from that part of the mind, so to speak. Okay, so that's where, because we can't change the effects, right? Effects are already, like the karmic seeds are already planted. But, and so we can't really change that. But, so we can change, basically it's our mindset, okay? So, so we want to transform the sixth consciousness into the divine observing wisdom. So basically gain clarity on things, on what we see, well, not just see, but everything that we sense. And also transform the seventh into what's called the equal universal wisdom, or you can say equanimity, basically treating everything as equal. Okay, so now the fifth and the eighth consciousnesses are considered the effects. The fifth, again, this means the first five, okay, the first five senses. And then the eighth is the alaya consciousness. Okay, so again, that's where the karmic seeds are planted. So that's part of considered on the effects side. The other 1 through 5 are also considered effects because they're driven by the sixth and seventh. The sixth and seventh say you have desires or you want to do something, and then it's the 1 through 5 that kind of does it. Okay, so then that's the effect, or how we perceive things. Okay, so so we want to transform the 1 through 5, basically perfection of conduct wisdom, so purify those roots, those 6 roots, or the 5 roots in this case. But so, and the 8th, the great perfect mirror wisdom. Okay, so not having attachments there. So in other words, here we don't want to, if we can, the 6 and 7, if we can achieve this wisdom, then we will not plant the karmic seeds, and therefore there won't. Right, we don't plant karmic seeds, and so there's nothing. Essentially, there are no attachments. Okay, so no seeds are planted in the alaya consciousness. Okay, now this actually, there's something also called the 9th consciousness, but the pure consciousness called the amala consciousness. But that's actually, it is the 8th. If it's turned into this great mirror wisdom, perfect mirror wisdom, then It's essentially the ninth, which is the Buddha nature. It's basically the Buddha nature. Okay, the mind of the Buddha nature. Okay, so so basically, we want to we have to maintain this mind of clarity. Realize what we're seeing is, or not just seeing, but what we're sensing, what we're perceiving is empty in nature. Okay, sunyata. And so once we have that mind of clarity, then there won't be any defilements, obstacles, attachments, duality, subjectivity, 3 poisons, 3 downward seals, 4 images, 3 minds, ignorance, etc. Okay, so all these things go away. All right, okay, so basically, right. Okay, so now this is kind of a breakdown of what kind of things that we do or do not do, if we have the wisdom, but it's not exact. Okay, so basically, I'm trying to say, oh, under divine observing wisdom, this is what we do or don't do here, but it's not exact in that, because there's some overlaps and things like that. So the point is not really to distinguish, which one belongs where. It's just that it's all of these things. Okay, so it's the same thing. We don't want to say, I just do this. We have this wisdom, and then the other ones forget about it. But you can't do that. Okay, so it's basically we have to do all. Okay, so basically, comparison is one of the things that we do. Right? We should not compare. We like to compare. If you think about in your everyday life, what you're doing, you're always comparing things, and whether it's comparing things or comparing with people or whatever. Okay, constantly doing comparisons. So we should not. The Buddhists, they tell us not to compare. Right? Don't compare, because comparison, you can say it's a type of duality. Okay. And then so we don't want to have this duality, and ignorance. Again, we have to know what is proper, what is right, what are the right views. Okay, the 4 Noble Truths. And so once we understand that, and then we can hopefully we can kind of address the ignorance part. Now, the equal universal wisdom, we have to realize that all sentient beings, all living beings have the Buddha nature. Okay, so the Buddha nature is in everything. Okay, so but in a living being, right? We should treat them equally. We should look upon them not as whether they're an animal, they're a person or whatever, but view them as well. They all have the Buddha nature essence, and so it's no different than ours, okay, and mine. I mean, so it's all the same. The essence is in everyone, all living beings. So that's then we can treat them equally. So we should not look at just the appearance, on the outside. Right? It says, don't judge a book by its cover or something, right? So what's important is what's inside, which is they have the Buddha nature. So the essence. Now, the other thing is, we shouldn't take things personally, right? Because remember, this is where normally the ego would be. So we get rid of the ego. Okay. So I mean, these are like steps to take that kind of help us get to that point. I mean, it's not, but anyways, yeah. So we can't take things personally, can't take things too seriously, okay? All right, for one, when people say things or do things, a lot of times we take it too seriously or too personally, when maybe there's no intent, that intent isn't there. But so that's something that we fabricated, we imagined that there was some intent on from the other person, but there really wasn't. And so in essence, we create that suffering, that affliction for ourselves. Okay, so it didn't exist before, right? Okay, so basically, we've gotten to get rid of our ego, and if we can get rid of the ego, there's no more subjectivity, right? No more subject-object duality, right? There won't be any biases, and then also basically, the three poisons we can get rid of. Okay, and then leading to the the conducts. So then obviously we practice all these things, all the cultivation practices in the middle way, the Noble Eightfold Paths, 6 Paramitas, and also when we live our everyday life, and also even when we're cultivating, practicing, we follow the 4 normals, right? What is common, everyday stuff. It's nothing really special, and it's routine, okay? And also it's kind of plain and simple, right? Shouldn't be too extravagant, and also we should be genuine, very sincere, you can say, natural, okay? And the 4 proprieties, of course, the do, right? Do not do, or do not look at things that are improper, do not hear things that are improper, do not, say things that are improper, do not do things that are improper, okay? And we also have to correct our habits, okay? And also, I guess somewhere in here it should be also get rid of our not just bad habits, but our bad temperament, okay? Then the great mirror wisdom, right? So ultimately, there's no attachment things. So no 3 minds, no 4 images, 3 minds, past, present, and future. We're not abiding in any time frames. Okay, so that's and also no 4 images. So again, this is part of the no subjectivity, right? Subject object duality, the ego, the me, and others. Okay, or even this idea of my life. Or personality, all these things. When you don't have these, then that's the definition of being in the moment. Okay, there's no 3 minds, no 4 images. That means that's being in the moment. Okay, so as long as we have ego, or we're kind of dwelling in some time frame, then we're not in the moment. All right. Okay, and then so there, and also no karmic affinities. All right. Yeah. So this is the practices basically, or the guidelines or the principles that we should follow, that we should practice, cultivate, in order to get to these, transform our consciousness into wisdom. Basically, you can also say that the consciousness that we're talking about is really it's subjective. Okay, it is. It's all because of the ego is always there. That it's a subjective consciousness, if you want to qualify that. Okay, but so we get rid of that and transform into wisdom. Wisdom, you can say it's you can say it's objective. Well, it's definitely non-subjective. Okay. All right. Okay, so yeah, this is kind of another way to look at it. Basically, yeah, we want to respond to matters, right? Yeah, obviously using our Buddha nature and divine wisdom, as opposed to using our consciousness, right? Emotions, feelings, things like that, because those are again all subjective. So we don't want to respond to things subjectively. We respond to matters as they arise, and then let it go. Actually, it should be returned to stillness. Okay, that's what this is. Now, because when we say let it go, it means that, well, we're already holding on to it. Okay, right. That's why you have to let it go. So that's kind of a little bit a step too late. Actually, just return to stillness. So you didn't even hold on to it. There's no attachment at all, not even for a second. Okay. And so this is kind of, you can use the analogy of a mirror as it reflects things, right? Then when something is in front of the mirror, all right, you respond to it, and you respond to it exactly as it is, because there's no distortion in the mirror, It reflects the situation exactly as it is, right? And then once that is dealt with, the thing is no longer in front of the mirror. So then the image in the mirror also disappears. It's gone, right? It doesn't leave a mark. It doesn't leave a latent image on the mirror, right? When the matter that's, or whatever object that's in front of is no longer in front of the mirror, right? So so then that's returning to stillness, and it doesn't leave, and there's no attachment, so there's nothing left on the mirror, no image left on the mirror, right? So in order to do this, right? So again, we we'll always talk a lot about or I guess repeat, mentioning like wu-wei, right? Basically, we initiate or carry out a response without any motive or conditions, without any subjectivity. Okay, so no emotion, passion, desire, subjectivity, right? Now, when we do that, right? It's also suyen, which is, you could say it's enforced is one way. It's just following the affinities. So it's and these two kind of go together. They go together. I mean, right? In order to, well, definitely for suyen, we have to have wu-wei to get to this. Okay, but so this is basically, people cannot be reluctant or begrudging when they're doing something. So then there's something, it feels a little bit forced already. So like if we want to bring someone to receive the Tao and they are reluctant and they, it's like, and we're really trying to like persuade them, convince them, that we can't force it. Okay, we can't force it. Then that's kind of going against their affinity. Okay, their affinity is maybe it's not ripe, mature yet. So we can't force that. So that's why it's always suyen. Okay, so basically it's natural. Okay, it should be pretty natural. We don't go to extremes. The action, natural action according to the affinity, right? So basically we have to be in harmony. Okay, with the people and the situation. All right, that's whatever we're dealing with. Okay, so that's very important because harmony, yeah, you can say that harmony is the result of this. Okay, so therefore, that's really the best you do. So it's not absolute. It's not saying that, in this situation you always do this and you can get this certain result. That's not the case because again the conditions are different. Depending on people and situation, the affinity there. Okay. All right. So basically, it's like our how we deal with things. Our mind should be like the perfect mirror, right? It reflects perfectly, and there leaves no trace in the mind, in our consciousness, right? No attachments. We're not remembering or trying to, constantly remember something that we did, like we did a good deed. We shouldn't remember that. Right? We just do it, and that's it. Okay, we don't have to say, "Oh, yeah, I remember I did that good deed," and then go further. You tell people, "Hey, I did this good deed," right? So that's not what we want. That there's attachment there. Okay. Okay, so so basically, it's like sensations. When we're dealing with things, sensations, they are what they are. Right? It's just that we turn them into something subjective. Okay, so again, when the sensations come in, the problem is it becomes subjective in our consciousness. Okay, and so we subjectively decide that, for example, pain is uncomfortable. So this is kind of like value judgments. I mean, we're making, and these are the things that are all subjective. Right? They say, pain is uncomfortable, it's not pleasurable, and therefore it's undesirable, right? So we end up doing whatever it takes to avoid or relieve pain, for example. Okay, so this is how this happens because of our view that pain, it feels uncomfortable, it's not pleasurable, therefore undesirable, and then we take action. Okay, so So that's how that works, and so therefore we have to try to remove as much subjectivity as possible. Okay, I don't know. I mean, unless we, we're really like we really become like a Buddha, Bodhisattva. That we'll probably still have some amount of subjectivity. Okay, but at least we have to try to get rid of as much of it as possible, right? Okay, so yeah, so basically, the five skandhas. If we realize the emptiness of these five skandhas, right, the cessation, everything, basically, that's why the sixth and seventh are the causes, right? It's all happening in those consciousness that we turn something that it just is into something that is subjective, okay? And that's where the problem is. That's where the problem lies, right? So if we don't turn it into anything subjective, right? If our perception is not subjective, so it's just like that perfect mirror, then there's no problem. There's no problem, okay? All right. Okay, so all right. So getting back to the sutra here, then it says here that without so 无无明以无无明尽，乃至无老死以无老死尽. Okay, so this is basically a shortened form of the links of dependent origination. Okay, so basically without ignorance and into ignorance, and then all the way up to there will be no aging and death, right, or dukkha, and no end to aging and death. Okay, so that's the last part. So in between, you have the other links, right? It goes from ignorance to volition, consciousness, name and form, six sense portals, the contact, sensation, desire, grasping, becoming, and birth. Okay, between these two ends. And so basically, yeah, if you break the link, right? Here is breaking it at the beginning. It's saying at the very beginning here. Well, actually, they're all void. But as long as we break the links, then the whole thing disappears. Okay, the whole thing goes away. So let me see. Right. Right. In the true reality, in the Dharmakaya, the state of or sunyata, right? There is really no ignorance. Okay, so therefore there is no need to end ignorance, right? So this is talking about the state of Dharmakaya, or the state of emptiness or sunyata. In that state, in the Buddha nature state, there is no ignorance. And obviously, if you don't have ignorance, there's no ignorance to get rid of. Okay, so obviously these two go together. The problem is we're not in that state. Okay, we're not in that state yet, and therefore we do have ignorance, and we have to get rid of the ignorance to get to that state. All right, so just keep that in mind. What it's saying here, that these things don't exist. They don't exist in that Dharmakaya, and that you can say is that true reality, absolute reality state. Okay. Okay. So, right, because unfortunately, we are immersed in this false reality of our subjective consciousness, right, due to ignorance and delusion. Right. So, therefore, we as sentient beings must end the ignorance to return to that oneness, right, returning to that suchness, that sunyata, that Dharmakaya. Okay. Once we are there, then all of this goes away. None of this exists really. Okay, so but it's almost, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's like a paradoxical thing, but we have to work on. That's why the cultivation, the practice is there to kind of get rid of these things, and then once we're in that state, then there's no need to. Okay, they don't exist anymore. Okay. So here, I mean, this is basically the chain. Okay, so again, the past causes, the ignorance. You can say three poisons. Okay, so I mean, it shows it as starting here, but actually, this is it's a cycle. This really represents a cycle here. So even though ignorance is first here, but actually after birth, aging, and death, it starts all over, right? It starts all over again. So actually, if you can break it at anywhere, it's just as good. Okay, but generally, we break it here because this is in our mind, ignorance, right? So ignorance then leads to volition, which create karma. Okay, so that's from the past. If we consider this to be from the past life, and in the present life, consciousness basically, this is our conception of things. Okay, this is in the present life. So this is actually, you can say that this is also basically, I guess you can say this is, we are being born here. Okay. Well, first of all, okay, yeah, sorry. The ignorance, right? Ignorance, once again, is giving rise to thoughts, right? Basically, the arousal or the perturbing, right? Defiling the mind or disturbing the mind, right? With emotions, feelings, intentions, things like that, ideas, things that are basically subjective in nature. Okay. And so basically, for example, if a mountain crashes in front of you, right, it just there's a mountain in front of you, and it just falls. Well, it's falling. I mean, it just breaks apart, right, and it falls crashing down in front of you. What do you do, right? Most people, of course, will be be surprised, maybe, cause fear, panic, etc. Right? However, Buddha nature is unmoved. Okay. So this is, sentient beings are moved by, or they're affected by what's happening, okay, through their, what they're perceiving through their senses. Whereas the Buddha nature doesn't care, really. It just is, okay. I know it's hard to kind of like make that leap to go from, I'm seeing this, the mountain is crashing in front of me, and just be unmoved by that. Okay, that's very difficult I realize that. But this is something that we have to understand, and try to kind of work in that direction, okay? Now, okay, so the consciousness, then you have name and form, and so this is basically, this conception basically here is basically giving birth, okay? So the mind and body form are together in the fetus, okay, and then the sixth sense portals, they develop, right? Our senses develop in the fetus, and then eventually, when we're born, that's the contact. We make contact with the world, okay, and then once we make contact, of course, we get sensations, right, from our sensory perception. Okay, so then there's probably a little bit of a leap here, but then it leads eventually to desire and craving, grasping and clinging, so more attachment here, a stronger attachment, and then becoming, basically we plant the seeds of karma for the future birth, aging, and death. Okay, so the cycle. So this is kind of like cycles within the cycles, but I mean they represent, each, you can say, represents a cycle. So, but this is just kind of the way that they break it down. Okay, so of the 12 links of dependent origination. But so this is, yeah. So this this is how it is. But if we can kind of get rid of, so what for the most part, we can work on our ignorance. Okay, get rid of the ignorance and the volition part. Okay, so these two, and once we can do that, then it's like dominoes, right? So one domino, if these are dominoes, right? This one knocks over the next one, it kind of follows through. Now, if then it doesn't get knocked over, meaning we got rid of this, then none of this happens. Okay, so I mean, at least in theory, the ideal situation, that's what it is. All right. Okay. So all right. Now all form. Okay. So now here, I mean, talking about, yeah. what we need to realize, right? Because earlier in the sutra is saying, oh, forms are empty, and emptiness is also form, or voidness is also form. Okay, so forms, Dharma, they're actually manifested. You can say they're manifested by the mind. Okay, so that basically, well, we know that forms exist due to causes and conditions, right? This whole universe, everything, there are causes, things that, you can say, I mean, it could have been like one cause, right, that set things in motion. Okay, like for example, a Big Bang. Okay, so then everything kind of follows from that, right? Then you have causes and conditions and effects and continuously on, right? As each in each stage, and so forms, all forms, they don't exist independently, right? The universe, doesn't just exist by itself. Okay, something created. It was created, right? So that's why it's it's cause conditions. Now, you can say that the mind consciousness is the cause of these forms. Okay, so now obviously you might think, well, I mean, I didn't create the universe, right? I did, but we do create a lot of things. Okay, we are the cause of a lot of forms. Okay, that get created. Now, you might say that, well, there is a greater mind, right? The original mind, you can say God's mind or whatever, that created the universe. Okay, so now we can't ask the question of why. I mean, it's just a natural thing. Actually, it's very natural. The how the universe is created, and there are many cycles. Okay, so it happens in a cycle. So there's no beginning and no end to it all. Actually, all right. Okay, so now so you say without the mind, then the forms are empty. In other words, I'm not saying that if I don't think about it, I don't, that's something then no longer exists, right? More importantly, it's that it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. Okay, so that's really the point. I mean, ultimately, yeah, if let's say like in a forest, right? If a tree falls and it crashes in the forest, right? You can ask, well, does it make any sound? If there's no one there to hear it, what is sound, right? The sound is perceived in our mind, right? If it's not perceived in our mind, does it matter? I mean, in other words, if there's no observer, does it really matter, right? So just like on the Earth, the planet Earth, right? So, like sometimes we have earthquakes, we have maybe volcanoes, but if the planet did not have any sentient beings on it, yeah, it can have earthquakes and volcanoes, but it doesn't matter. There's no sentient being on the planet, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, so that you can say that in that sense, definitely it's empty. All right. So this is also similar to what those physicists are saying, that, well, maybe, this universe is a projection of our consciousness, okay, only. Okay, so, but anyways, all right. Now, the mind also finds expression in forms and dharma, right? So everything, the mind objects, right? The things that are in our mind are all forms, okay? And so, what is the mind that has no form in it? How we can't communicate, right? We're not, at least us, when we're sentient beings, we do. Unfortunately we use forms. Okay, we use forms. In our thoughts, in our mind, and obviously in our communication as well. But if we are one, right? If we are in that state of oneness, in the stillness, there's no need. There's no need, right? It's just one mind. You can say it's one mind. Everyone has that one mind, the same mind. and therefore there's no need to communicate anything, right? Okay, so, but anyways, so the mind, but this mind, okay, so we have to realize that mind also is a function of the essence, right? The Buddha nature, Dharmakaya, it's a function of it. Okay, so the mind exists as a function of this essence. So the mind is not the essence, right? Sometimes I think we say the essence of mind, right? So there's something else that is actually the essence. The mind is not the essence. Okay, so it's a function, and so as a function of the essence, it can do. Obviously, the mind is very powerful. It can do a lot of things. Okay, now the function of the mind consciousness is dependent on the forms, as I was saying. That we depend on these forms. If a person has no senses, or there's no sensory perception at all, there's no sensory stimuli, no input senses, right? Everything is, it's dark, there's no sound, there's nothing. Can the mind actually think of anything? Right? It's, I mean, obviously even if, let's say, a person goes blind, if they're not blind from birth, that is, if they go blind later on, they can still have images in their mind, right? They can still kind of call up visual images in their mind. But that's due to, you can say, experience and knowledge, okay, from the past. But if there was nothing, there was never anything, no such experience or knowledge, can they come up with something? It's possible, right? The mind could do that, potentially. Okay, so now, okay, so the thing is that now the forms, now, so we're talking about, external forms or any kind of forms, they give rise to the conditions that affect the mind. Okay, so again, this affecting the mind, it's because of our, you can say, our subjectivity that it affects the mind, right? Without the subjectivity, without the ego, the mind really should not be affected by, we see something that's, this looks beautiful, or this looks ugly, or this smells good, this smells bad, good and bad. All these things, this is all subjective. And it's coming from the mind, the consciousness, that we create that subjectivity. So it's really not the problem with the forms per se. The forms themselves, right? The flower did not have a label on it that says, "Oh, I'm beautiful" or "I'm ugly," right? That we imposed that, we made that judgment, right, in our mind, right? It didn't. The ugliness and beauty did not exist. It just, the flower is just, it is just what it is. But we apply that quality or that judgment or that label to it. Okay, so again, so the forms actually, it's not really the problem. Okay, but so anyways, so without any forms, then the mind is empty. You can say there's a mind of stillness. Okay, but this is really saying that if the mind is not affected by the conditions, then it'll be a mind of stillness, right? There's no subjectivity. All right. Okay. So therefore, we can say that maybe the mind and the forms, dharma, are interdependent, right? They kind of depend on each other. And the mind is concomitant, which, you can say it's interdependently coexists with the forms, right? So if the forms don't exist, then, maybe the mind doesn't really function in how, well, there's no consciousness, at least, no mind consciousness, okay? And, so without the mind, you can say that the forms don't exist, or, they don't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, so therefore, the mind, consciousness, and significant forms are void. Okay, so that's kind of trying to reason through, why the form, they're empty. Okay, All right. Thing is, we attach a significance to whatever the forms are, or we say, oh, this is insignificant or this is significant. We value one more or the other over the other, right? These are all, again, it's being judgmental. I mean, it's very subjective. Okay, so that's why that's all coming from the consciousness. And so if we can transform the consciousness into the wisdoms, treat everything equally, then we won't have that problem. All right. Okay. Okay. So that, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really kind of say, oh, how these things relate. But yeah, you have your Buddha nature, Dharmakaya, the essence. Okay, sunyata, the essence there. The mind is a function of that. The forms, you can say that they arise from they also arise from that essence too, actually. But the relation with the mind and the forms is through our sensation, perception, the conception, all that, the volition. Okay, so this is but because they are, for one, the mind being a function, right? It's just a function, and so it has no essence in itself. Forms also, they don't have an essence because they're created as well, and so on that, in that sense, they are equal. They're on equal basis. Okay, that they are both considered, you could say, empty. The only thing that's not, I mean, well, they have no essence. Okay, so the only thing that's the true essence that exists is this, the Buddha nature, Dharmakaya. Okay, everything else is impermanent, for one. I mean, because these are all subject to change. Okay. Right, to a further example of this problem with the mind, the subjectivity, and its relation to the forms. For example, when there's a blackout, right? So when there's a blackout, blackout happens. Well, yeah, most people, okay, they're they deal with it, okay, but some people they just have to go out and start looting, okay. And because what? They see that as, oh, there's a chance, there's an opportunity for them to get things that they want, that normally, that they can just take, right? Smash and grab. Okay, so this is, that's, again, I mean, they already have desire, they have attachment, all these things that are in their mind already. It's a defiled mind. And when they see that form, oh, the blackout, and they remember, oh, hey, I saw this, I saw that iPhone in the Apple store. Let's go smash and grab, whatever. Okay, that's what's happening there. But so we really have to control the mind here. That's all. The consciousness is taking over the desires, right? Attachments, and so we have to, and greed, so definitely the mind, we have to control the mind such that it doesn't matter what's happening in the forms, whether it's a blackout or whatever, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect us. Okay, it's not going to tempt us to do something that we shouldn't do. All right, okay. All right, so don't let the phenomena influence our feelings or state of mind, right? Have a proper view, understanding, right, which is the Four Noble Truths, and realize that everything is, right, having those three marks of existence here: anicca, which is impermanence; dukkha, suffering or imperfection; anatta, that there's no self-existence. Okay, so of things, that everything is just. We have to take things more lightly. So that's one of the things that, right, don't take things too seriously, and just accept things as they are, okay, without adding any value judgment to it. Okay, no subjectivity. Remember, okay. So and so we have to let go of all karmic affinities and not give rise to a single thought. It's kind of a catch-all thing where, yeah, this is what we have to do, okay, to not fall into that trap, right? Okay. All right, so continuing here, basically in the sutra it says, okay, 无苦集灭道. Okay, so there will be no dukkha. Well, actually, it's all four. Okay, so these are four noble truths here. Basically, so even though we're saying, yeah, we right, we have to understand and know the four noble truths, but here it's saying, this doesn't exist. Actually, this is talking about the Dharmakaya state, the Buddha nature state, the pure, you can say the pure mind state, whatever, that this really doesn't exist. There's no need for this, all right? Because there is no suffering, right? There's no dukkha, right? There's no ignorance, right, that causes it, right? There's no need for nirvana because you're already there. There's nothing to right, there's nothing to gain, there's nothing. Okay, so ultimately this it's almost like I don't know, a tautology or something, but anyways, so and then also 无智亦无得. Okay, so voidness and non-possession, right, or non-attainment, right, is practiced by the bodhisattvas. So this is really, the six paramitas is really the cultivation, the practice of the six paramitas tries to achieve this, where there's nothing to gain, okay, nothing to gain. All right, so remember the six paramitas is giving, basically charity, giving or relinquishment, discipline, precepts, right, forbearance, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, so ultimately it's really getting rid of our ego. Try to get rid of our ego, right? Getting rid of attachments, desires, things like that. Okay, so and then controlling, make sure that we aren't tempted or anything like that. Okay. Right. So there is no, right. There's nothing to gain or attain because basically the Buddha nature, the Dharmakaya, has everything. Right. We already said that everything is contained within it. Right? Everything comes from it. Okay, so it already has everything it needs. There's nothing that it doesn't have. Okay, so there is nothing to gain, nothing to attain, really. So even nirvana, there's no need. We don't need to attain nirvana. It is nirvana. Okay, so now we do need to do this practice now, right? Because we are sentient beings. But once we have achieved oneness, then we must let go of the dharma, right? So that's so again, so these, like the six paramitas, all the principles, the practice, the cultivation, those are all tools to get us to, they say, get to the other shore, the shore of enlightenment, shore or nirvana, is once we get there, right? Once we're in this pure state, the state of the Dharmakaya, the Buddha nature, then there's no need for these things. These things don't really help us anymore. I mean, because there's nothing, we're really, at that point, there's nothing that we need to get rid of or to gain, all right? Okay, so just like, when we say, when we use the Dharma to cross the river or cross the water, right, to get to the other shore, well, we use the boat, the Dharma boat, okay? So, but once we get to the other shore, then we leave the Dharma boat behind. We don't need it, right? And if we are still attached to it, then there's a problem. Then we can't really go beyond, okay? Right. So Buddha, even like Buddha himself, okay. He was wondering why he did not attain full enlightenment. Right? He's sitting under the Bodhi tree and looks like he was enlightened, but there's still he still had this little attachment to the idea that there's something to attain, that he needs to attain this nirvana. Okay, and because of that, he hadn't fully reached it, and it was the Dipankara kind of pointed it out, and then Buddha realized, then he let go. Then there was no more. That was his final attachment to the idea of attainment, and then he finally was in nirvana. Okay, so so it's the same thing. We have to, so every little thing, not just, material things, this body, this, even the teachings, the ideas, we have to let go in the end, okay? Once it's served its purpose, that is, okay, once it has served its purpose, then we don't need it anymore, and we need to let it go, okay? We cannot be attached to it, because that will just hold us back, okay? So, all right. Okay, so the dharmas, the form, mind, they're all void. Okay, the dharmakaya or the Buddha nature, the essence, right, is also void nature. I mean, okay, we say it's sunyata. Okay, so hence the dharmas equals the Buddha nature essence, right? Everything is essentially, we say it's all void, right? Void, but Buddha nature is everything and everywhere. There is no subject-object duality, right? Where's the subject and object? There isn't. It's both. Okay, you can say, if you want to say it that way, it's both. And so there is no subject, and that's also saying that there is no subject-object duality, right? Okay, so and when we look into a mirror, right? Do we see someone else or do we see ourselves, right? We're looking at ourselves in the mirror. It's the same thing when we look at anything and everything, right? We are in fact looking at a mirror image of ourselves. It's a reflection of ourselves, or what's in our mind, a reflection of our consciousness. Okay, so but however, our view is being conditioned by subjectivity, and delusion, ignorance. Therefore, we do not see it as suchness. Okay, so even though, right? I mean, obviously, for us, conceptually we know, yeah, okay, if I'm looking in the mirror at myself, then that's me. Okay, but actually, in reality, when we're looking at the world, it's the same thing, right? We're actually, it really is like that projection from inside. We think it's coming in from the outside, but it's actually projecting from our mind. Okay, right. So that's here. Okay, so the reflection of our mind and projection of our consciousness, and so everything is suchness, right? So that I mean, this may be kind of hard to kind of grasp, understand, but that's really the nature of things. Okay, how it is. Now, okay, so this void nature of everything, sunyata. Okay, so you have the Buddha nature essence, sunyata, dharmakaya, however we want to call it. We have the mind as a function of that. Okay, so this mind, I mean, it's almost like one facet, but I mean, you could say, it's a function of this. So you can't separate these two. Basically, there is a mind function of this. Okay. And from that, in that mind, it could be, right? We can have a enlightened mind, we can have a ignorant mind, and so this consciousness, or you can have the mind of wisdom and a mind of consciousness. Okay, so that's where we have the ignorance, and that also we create this ego, right? This false sense of this is me, this self. That's the delusion, you can say. From there, we have subjectivity, attachments, desires, right? And then that finally also leads to karma and rebirth. So, this is, but if we can realize that these things, so we have to kind of get rid of the ignorance, okay? So in our conscious mind, so transforming the consciousness into wisdom is important in ending this path here. Okay, so all right, let's see. All right, so that kind of was the end of that section here. So that was up to here. So the next section here, 以无所得故 okay, 菩提萨埵依般若蜜多故 right, 心无挂碍，无挂碍故无有恐怖，远离颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃，三世诸佛依般若蜜多故 the Ano Dolo Samyao Sambuddhi. Okay, so this section is kind of saying basically the Bodhisattvas, right, and the Buddhas, they've all practiced this, right? And that because when they practice this, they have this prajna, paramita, right? This perfection of wisdom. Then they have no worries, there's nothing. Okay, so all right, let's see. Okay, so here it is. So basically, it says iuso the iuso the gu. Okay, so yeah, if there is nothing to be attained. Okay, right? We were just saying that there is really nothing to be attained or gained. Right? Ultimately, you are it. Okay, it is it. Right? So again, if we have that mind of attainment, then we have not achieved yet. Right? No, this is the idea that, oh, I've achieved something, I've attained something. Then really, the idea, the fact that we think that way means that, oh, I'm still thinking in terms of gain and loss. Okay, and so that's still that duality, and so we should not think of that. Right? So even though, yeah, I may have done a lot of things, right, accomplishments. We shouldn't think of that as, oh, I've done these things, okay, or I've accomplished these things. Yeah, we should not think of that. Okay, so achieving the highest level is Buddhahood, perfection, right? Not lacking in anything and not needing to gain anything, right? So there's nothing more. There's nothing really to be gained ultimately, right? So I mean, it's not that we don't need to do those things, right? In the practices, the cultivation, yes, we do need to do those things, but we shouldn't think of those as having something that we've gained or attained, right? So Puddhisattva, right? Iboro boro midogu. Okay, so this is basically another way of saying bodhisattvas. Okay, or they're awakened sentient beings, right? They rely on the perfection of wisdom, right? That's this part here. So with the great divine wisdom, we have no impediments, nothing to hold us back, nothing to prevent us from, becoming one. This achieving. I'm not achieving, but just becoming one. Okay, and then so to reveal the Prajna wisdom, though, we must let go of all karmic affinities, not give rise to a single thought. Right. So basically, neither when we are neither lacking nor needing to gain, right? Or neither attainment nor non-attainment. All right. That's the ultimate oneness or suchness. So that's basically nirvana. Okay. So we can get to that state, if you will. Okay, being in that state. All right. Now, okay. So Xing Guai. So basically, they have no hindrances or obstacles in the mind. Right. Basically. Remember, there's in this ideal liberated state of the mind, right? There's no contention, right? We have no gain, loss. There's no comparison, subjectivity, right? No like, dislike, no good or bad, no ego, right? There's no worries, no attachments, no desires, no ignorance. Okay, so all these things, there's none of that. And now, and then it says. Okay, so therefore, without obstruction or these hindrances in the mind, there is no fear. Okay, now there is basically the fear, of course, can be interpreted in certain ways, but for a bodhisattva, so we were talking about these bodhisattvas, they have no fear. Okay, there's no worries, there's no obstructions, they have no fear. There's something called the 5 fears of bodhisattva practice. So these 5 fears, basically, you have, okay, the first one is fear of not being able to survive after giving away possessions. All right, so, people are afraid, or what holds them, they're not willing to give up stuff, a lot of stuff, or give away a lot of things, everything. Okay, so because they fear, if I give away too much, I can't support myself, I can't, survive, I can't live, whatever. That's this fear. But remember that if we are practicing the Bodhisattva path and we are doing all the right things that a Bodhisattva should be doing, right? Remember that one of the 10 liberations. One is the liberation of means, that things will be, you could say, taken care of, that we won't starve, okay? Well, we won't be lacking in anything that we really need, okay, to live and to basically carry out our mission, so to speak. Okay, so, and also the other thing is, sada. I mean, we have to realize that giving is receiving, we're getting something back. Okay, so we don't want to think of as say, oh, I'm going to get something back, but it's automatic that when we give, that we naturally get something. We do get, you can, whatever it is, it'd be blessings, right? It could be this liberation of means things, where heaven will take care of us, right? So don't be afraid of giving, right? The second fear is fear of losing significance after giving up reputation of accomplishments, right? So here, again, we're afraid of loss. So again, we have this idea of gain and loss, especially as it comes to accomplishment. Hey, look, I did all these things. I made all these donations, right? So, right, in the temple, we talk about this 推公揽过, right? We say give credit to others, but we take the blame for things. Okay, so this is, you could say, I mean, this is not necessarily, yeah, you could say this is kind of like a principle that we could try to apply, that don't, we have this attachment to saying, oh, this is, I should get the credit for that's due me, that, look, you can say it's recognition. I mean, that, oh, look at the things I did, right? But so we should not be afraid of giving that up, right? Saying, oh, okay, so yeah, I did all these things, but no one knows about it, right? That's fine, right? We shouldn't be afraid of that, okay? Or feel that, oh, we now, because no one knows that I did all these things, that they don't think I'm important, okay? So again, this is one of the fears. So these, these 5 fears are basically their hindrances or obstacles to the practice, right? Right, fear of dying in situations that may call for self-sacrifice. Now this may be difficult, right? That, oh, no one wants to give up their life for something, but basically, in the spirit of dedication and sacrifice, basically, if we view life, it depends on how we view life. I mean, if we have a strong attachment to our own life, then obviously we won't do this. Okay, we won't sacrifice ourselves in some kind of situation. Okay, and we'll have a fear of dying. But again, once we realize that everything, it's all empty. It's not to say that, oh, I recklessly, I can, die. It's okay. But that's kind of going to an extreme. Okay, so again, middle path, right? We don't do things to the extreme. But if we happen to be, we're trying to save someone, and in the process we lose our life, right? We shouldn't go into that situation necessarily thinking that, oh, if I go try to save this person, am I going to lose my life? I mean, we have to use our wisdom, okay? So in terms of whether we kind of move forward and act, but there's no one right answer there, but we shouldn't be afraid if it calls for, it's a dangerous situation, but it's something that you have to do, then you do it, and don't worry about whether you may lose your life. Okay, so I mean, we're talking about bodhisattvas here. For most sentient beings, maybe it's not, but actually, some people like firefighters or other maybe first responders, they might put their life on the line in certain situations to save other people's lives. Okay, so that is, we should kind of overcome this fear of falling into evil circumstances. All right, so we want to establish overwhelming righteous energy, right? Halan Zhenqi. Okay, so basically, let me see. Yeah, Yeah, I mean, this is right. We do kind of have say, oh, we got to be careful. We don't fall into the evil path or be influenced by evil, things like that. Okay, so in order to kind of prevent that, we have to establish this overwhelming or vast righteous energy. Righteous energy is basically we do the right things. We do what's proper. Our mind, especially what's in our mind, obviously what our actions follow from our mind. So make sure that our mind is righteous, is proper, is pure, right? Not thinking of all sorts of crazy things. And also, if we are all doing the right things, if we're doing performing merits, right? We're nurturing our virtues, then we will basically have this righteous energy, which can then, block the evil from us. Okay. All right, and then finally, the fifth fear is fear of addressing an assembly. Okay, and I think this says especially in a situation where there are maybe important people present. Okay, so this, people, have especially like for us, it would be like for lectures, transmitters, temple hosts, who are maybe have to give classes, teach. Okay, now this. Basically, there's this saying here, "Dangren Brang." Okay, so do what is. It's a little bit more specific than what I'm saying here. It says do what is necessary in a situation. Okay, so this I think is usually the saying is applied in a situation where basically, there's someone else maybe who can do it better, but in that situation. But if the opportunity arises, right? And maybe they don't do it, or then we should step forward and do it. Okay, so basically, I kind of generalize that more to say do what's necessary in the situation, and we shouldn't be fearful of whatever is saying. Oh, maybe I'm stepping on someone's toes. It's like, oh, that this is they would do it better, but hey, if they're not doing it, and we shouldn't keep pushing things, say, oh, this is not my responsibility. You got to do it. Okay, someone else should do it. Basically, but we do have to be careful. Okay, I mean, be mindful that as when we're teaching, let's say, we are representing. For one, we're representing the Tao. We're also representing the temple, right? And so like in this class, we have, different temples in attendance. And so, we have to be a little bit more careful. Usually we might be a little bit more, more casual maybe, or informal in our own, within our own temple. But since we're kind of dealing with someone from the outside, a different temple, or even, if it's like in the public, then we have to be even more cautious about, how we present ourselves, okay, and what we present, okay. But still, we do have to overcome this kind of, especially, actually, this is especially for those who need to give classes, things like that. All right. Okay. All right. So basically, these are the fears that hinder a bodhisattva from taking action, okay, potentially, and so they have to overcome once. So it was just saying that the fears, right? There is no fear anymore. Okay, so then the bodhisattva then don't have these fears anymore, and so then they can do whatever they need to do. Okay, fulfill their mission, right? So and for us, cultivation and practice, right, involves action. Therefore, we also have to, overcome the fears. Maybe, this last one may not necessarily apply to everyone, but actually, pretty much the other ones do. Okay, so, all right, because, let's see this time. Yeah, all right, because of the time, I think I'm not gonna really finish this. I thought I was gonna finish this. Yeah. All right. Well, All right, so I guess we'll just end it here for today then. If I had said anything wrong or unsatisfactory, I asked Buddhists for forgiveness, and also I asked transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. And thank you.